Hey everyone, welcome to Strange Stories, where we explore near-death experiences and supernatural stories from people who've had a glimpse of the other side. If you enjoy our content, please consider liking the video and subscribing to our channel. Without further ado, let's get to the story of the day. My birthday is August 10th. On this particular day, I just turned 14 years old. I was visiting two friends a few blocks away when one of them came in and told us that the horse had escaped from the pen in the backyard. We could keep livestock in town back then. The county population was slightly more than 8,000 and the town population was 1,200. We all went out to get the horse. My friend's backyard did not have a horse. The horse had wandered into a vacant lot behind the alley, which had become overgrown with tall weeds and wild corn. That was beyond our comprehension, so we began whacking the weeds. A weed is any plant that grows in an area where it's not desired. I was moving pretty quickly when I stepped through a clump of heavy stuff and right into the back end of that horse. That horse squealed, jumped forward, and hunched up. Oh, I thought. He's going to kick. I snatched its tail. It's true that if you grab a horse's tail and hold it tightly enough, he won't kick. However, you must obtain the tail. It slipped my mind. I took off through the air and landed on my back. That's strange. Why don't I hurt? I thought as I stood up. He got right to the bottom of my stomach. My friends, who were identical twins, dashed through the weeds and stood over a body on the ground. I was one of the few people in town who could tell the twins apart, even when they weren't standing together. The twins grabbed this idiot, whoever he was, and carried him towards their house. I accompanied them and attempted to converse with them. They were completely uninterested in me. That irritated me, and I grabbed one of my friends by the shoulder. My hand passed directly through his shoulder. He shuddered, looked around, and continued on his way. I followed them up the stairs and into their back porch and kitchen. I attempted to follow them, but the kitchen door slammed shut through me. Do you think that's not shocking, man? Let me tell you, it's quite shocking. When Mom told me to gather my friends for a party, I had the impression that everything was not as normal as it had been that morning. Before I could think about it, I was in the kitchen and then in the living room where my friends were putting this guy on the couch. His belt buckle was practically smashed, as I could see. When I looked closer, I realized it was my belt buckle. What was he doing with it? I had never seen anyone like him before. When I got a closer look, I realized it was me. That is, we never see ourselves as others do. Even in photographs, we rarely look at ourselves. I mean, I hadn't until that point. Anyway, my friend's mother was checking me out. That's the body," and she exclaimed, "He isn't breathing." My friend picked up the phone and dialed the doctor's number. Nobody in the house had heard of artificial respiration. Strange things started happening around that time. A very thin silver cord ran from the pit of the stomach to my stomach. I could leave the house simply by thinking about it. I desired to be outside. Then I remembered Mom, and I found myself in the kitchen where she was preparing the cake batter for my birthday party. That's too bad, I thought. Now I won't be able to attend, and she will be very disappointed that I won't be there. I remembered Dad and found myself in town, 2 miles from the road, at the railroad depot where Dad was the station agent. He gave a startled jerk, looked around, right through me, and said, "That's strange," before returning to work. I noticed gray bodies wandering around town, around the railroad, and in and out of the hotel while the railroad crews changed trains and had their layovers. They just walked past the people on the hotel's porch, neither noticing the other. These gray beings had no faces and seemed to be doing nothing but wandering around, as if they were lost. So I arrived in town. I started to feel as if I was being withheld. With my body, I was now standing in the corner of the room. My pal was on the phone. The doctor, he said, was on his way. The doctor was 15 miles away. The space seemed to shrink, getting smaller and smaller. I was then inside a dark room that was getting darker and darker. It began whirling around me, and I felt a strong vibration inside my body. It was so strong that I thought I would be dissolved. I thought I was doomed when it became so powerful. I was out of the tunnel, if you can call it that. I was completely in the dark. I raised my hand and examined it. Almost too dark to see your hand in front of your face, I thought. What exactly is this location? I looked around and realized I was standing on something solid, but I couldn't see what it was. I felt my body and was dressed, but they were of much finer fabric than my t-shirt and blue jeans. Well, this appears to be it, I thought. I must have purchased the farm. I'm no longer alive. So this is how it goes. Nothing. Nowhere. I was standing there, perplexed, when I noticed a tiny light in the distance. I was looking, and it gradually seemed to grow larger. Not brighter, but larger. In a very short time, the light had grown to the size of a person. I noticed a figure inside the light. The light was bright, but not overpowering. The eyes were not dazzled. It got close enough for me to take a look inside. In my mind, there was a very soothing, very strong, but not overpowering thought that said, "Child, do not be afraid. We will not cause you any harm." This struck me as strange. What exactly is a childing? I almost immediately responded to the thought. In a moment. What do you have to show us? Now, I must pause for a moment to provide a definition. Aside from being about 8 feet tall, this being was made of light. The planes in the face were entirely made of light. There was the sense of total acceptance, complete acceptance. It was all around and inside me. This being appeared to be composed of two beings. I'll refer to them as they from now on because that's what they were and are. When they asked, "What do you have to show us?" many images appeared around us. I have to call them images because words cannot describe what I was feeling. They surrounded us on all sides. Every thought, emotion, action, and word I'd ever had seemed to be embedded in those images. I could see links between a thought here and a thought there. A long time later, a repercussion. I could see words both there and here. I could see the consequences. I also went through each of these situations a second time. You must understand that this was all happening at the same time. Our brain can only hold one conscious thought at a time in this situation, and we appear to feel only one emotion at a time. Many of my thoughts manifested as hard, tangible, and physical objects. Many of the things I'd done, thought, emoted, and acted without thinking about the consequences were pointed out as grave errors. Not bad, just a few mistakes. Other things were mentioned as being extremely beneficial to me and others. Things I expected to get me on the greased slide to the hot spot down below were met with a broad, gentle amusement. It seemed to take an eternity, but was over in an instant. "Who are you?" I asked when it was over. "You're not Jesus, because Jesus did not look like you." "Child, we are who Jesus referred to as my Father," they said. That's unusual, I thought. You must understand that there was no air there. I wasn't talking in the way we do here. Nonetheless, I was able to communicate. "What's this all about?" I asked. "What's going on?" "You're here before your time. An accident," they said. To summarize, you're in a physical body to learn to care for others and to gain knowledge. That is the entirety of physical life. I saw that many of my thoughts became actual physical things, I explained. How is this even possible? "Thoughts are things," they said. "We must give you what you imagine with emotion in order for you to learn. When you learn to generate a stable image accompanied by a strong emotion. But keep in mind that having this thing has drawbacks." "Such as?" I asked. "For example, Do you have the means to support keeping the item now that you have it? They replied. Do you really want it now that you have it? Intangible things, for example, are impossible to imagine. Can you visualize acceptance? Or do you have to feel it? Is it possible to imagine love? Or is it only possible to experience it? Childing, you have a lot to learn. Do you want to stay or do you want to go? That place was now filled with complete acceptance and total love. I had no idea what else was there, but I had a feeling that if I stayed, everything would change completely into something wonderful, and I knew I could stay if I said I wanted to. I was standing in the corner of my friend's living room, staring at the doctor as he prepared a 6-inch hypodermic needle. He stabbed it into the body's chest, just below the sternum, and rammed the plunger in. The body let out a jerk. I was yanked back into that body so quickly that I bounced right back out, then back in. I let out a gasp, and the body began to breathe. My heart had given a thump that shook me from head to toe. I was in a lot of pain. I tried to tell the doctor what had happened to me after he checked me over and said I was fine. He told everyone to leave the room because he needed to conduct some other tests. He then inserted another hypodermic needle into my arm, and I fell asleep. All I remembered when I awoke was being kicked and awoken by the doctor. I recovered the memories in 1971 after taking EST and attending Silva Mind Control basic and advanced training. The doctor was an accomplished hypnotist. In 1971, I discovered what was in that shot. Back in my hometown, I checked my medical records. It was sodium pentothal, also known as the truth serum. It was a very powerful hypnotic when used correctly. Doc had programmed me not to be able to recall what happened consciously until it was safe to do so. Much was being done about near-death experiences in the 1970s. It was now safe to bring up the incident again. What it comes down to is that you'll get what you think with emotion. That which I feared has come to pass, Job said in the Bible. The key words here are come to pass, which most people miss. If we learn how we got into situations and look for a way out, everything will be fine. I could go on and on about all the studies and midnight musings, but that is a personal matter. You're on your own path. Here's everything you need to know. You'll get what you think with emotion. It makes no difference what the thought or emotion is. If the thought is beneficial and the emotion is not, the outcomes will be dispersed, but you'll get it. You will get it if the thought is beneficial and the emotion is beneficial. You'll get it if the thought is harmful and the emotion is harmful. Again, you get what you think with emotion.